Good afternoon, friends. Father Frank Pavone, National Director of Priests for Life. I'm here with Janet Morana, our Executive Director and founder of Silent No More.
That's right.
Hi, Janet. We're coming to you from our Priests for Life headquarters here in Titusville, Florida, and this is an emergency live broadcast,
That's
if you
right.
will.
Well, first of all, I just want to apologize to our viewers. Normally at 3 o'clock, we broadcast the Rosary, the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and then what would normally follow at 3:30 is a live show with me and some special guests. However, because of some breaking news out there with the LA Times about this documentary that's coming up,
About Norma McCorvey, the Jane
claiming the Jane Roe of Roe v. Wade flipped back to being pro-abortion, or they like to say pro-choice, on her deathbed, is so much of a lie, so false, so crazy, that we said, that's it. We had to get in the studio right now and tell you the truth. We've known, first of all, Father Frank and I have known Norma for decades.
You know, it is no surprise to us, right? It is no surprise that whether using clips of interviews done with her towards the end of her life, or trying to retell her story, or trying to get this or that person to say this or that, it is no surprise that the advocates of abortion, skillful liars that they are, would try to twist this story. Because this is a painful story for them that actually very many in the pro-life side of this debate don't even know that the Jane Roe of Roe v. Wade ended up rejecting Roe v. Wade.
Right.
People still don't know that. When we've been telling this story because we've been part of this story
for years,
and we've been telling it for years, and a lot, and still to this day, you would think you would get to the point where people say, "Oh yeah, we know that."
Right.
They don't.
No.
And now, in a sense, that this effort of the other side to try to get people to think that it was all an act, that it was all a lie on her part, is actually going to get more people to realize that she did convert, which they didn't know. But let's...
Well, we should just go back for a minute, Father, because as Norma had always told us and told everybody, she never had an abortion. And so that's to be a fact.
That's right. No, she did not have an abortion.
Clear. Yeah. She never had an abortion. In fact, she had 3 pregnancies and gave birth to 3 babies, all girls.
Yeah.
The first birth was her daughter Melissa, who her mother helped raise. The second baby, I believe, if I recall this correctly, she placed for adoption. And then there's the Roe baby, the baby in question, which, by the way, she never met. They were all people, again, when you talk people claim things, throughout the decades, they claimed, I'm the Roe baby. And remember Norma always told us, there's one thing about that baby only I know, she said, and I'll never, she goes, Father, I won't even tell you, because that's the only way I'm going to know for certain when that child comes forward that it's really them. Well, so she always had people. As a matter of fact, the funniest time when she had an Asian woman said that she was the Roe baby, Norma laughed about that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's put this in context. First of all, people don't even know what we're talking about here. This afternoon, we've known for some days now that there's this documentary that is coming out on Friday night. So we haven't seen this documentary.
We haven't seen it.
That some people made in the final years or
months or years. We're not sure
of Norma's life.
Right.
That now today the LA Times and a number of other publications have put out these articles that say, and it's amazing how uncritically the advocates of baby killing just absorb this, and then they proclaim it as dogma. Now you're going to see it's proclaiming as dogma. AOC even tweeted about this already.
Already?
Liar that she is.
Oh my gosh.
Saying, hey guys, hey, this Norma McCorvey, she wasn't really pro-life after all, And the narrative that they're trying to create is that the right, with a capital R, I guess they consider us part of that.
I guess.
Right? Mm-hmm. Paid her And she put on a big act so she could get money from the right. I want to delve into some of these things so people know what was going on over those years. But this is why we wanted to come on right away, because now all of a sudden in the last couple of hours have just been exploding on social media and email.
My emails
people are calling us and whatnot. Look,
well, Facebook audience, if you have a question, type it in here and we'll answer it.
No, it's. Let me put this in an initial context here. What if somebody, here's how we feel about this right now. Just seeing these initial stories, we've seen some of these clips, and we can give you all the context of how or why Norma would say various things. But let me put this in the context of how this makes people like us who knew her intimately for decades, didn't swoop in at the end of her life with cameras, but knew her for decades through all the ups and downs and ins and outs of her journey, with her in the public moments and with her in the private moments, hearing her public speeches, in fact, arranging many of her public speeches.
And sometimes substituting for her.
And hearing the private conversations that nobody will ever hear. Here's the perspective I want to give you right at the outset of this. What if you had a sibling who passed away a few years ago, right? And somebody comes along to you today and says, hey, by the way, your brother, your sister was lying all their lives about this, that, or the other thing. It's like you feel this sense of, who in the heck do you think you are?
Exactly.
Trying to tell us about this person that we knew inside. Oh, who do you think you are? Norma was not somebody that you get to know by being a journalist.
No.
Norma was not somebody you get to know by putting a microphone in front of her mouth or a camera in front of her face. She resented that, actually. Remember when just to touch on one moment of her complex journey, when I received her into the Catholic Church.
Right.
I received her she called me the catalyst that brought her into the Catholic Church.
And I was sitting next to her when you confirmed her.
And that was a ceremony, remember, not a single reporter was allowed in.
Right.
By whose decision?
Norma's.
This was August of 1998.
Right.
And she
said,
in Texas.
This is not for the public to know.
This is not.
She said, this is my life, and I'm going to be Catholic, and I'm not going to answer a bunch of questions about why I'm being Catholic. She said, Father Frank, you and Father Robinson, who was her actual spiritual director right there in Dallas, and of course you did other spiritual direction with her. She said, you guys know. I don't need them to know.
No, and we were fine with people reporting on it, and if she wanted media to be there, we were fine with that, because obviously it did become a story, especially in the Catholic world, that the Jane Roe of Roe v. Wade became Catholic.
After it, she said, Father, you want to send a press release?
Yeah, she allowed us to send a press release.
She said, send a press release.
But I'll never forget the conversation. It was right before the Mass. And, she said, we are not letting, if somebody comes in here with a camera, with a microphone, with a reporter's pad, I don't want them here. This is we're worshiping the Lord here in this, in this moment.
Well, Father, too, tell our Facebook, our audience here, the specific homily of what you said about the babies and Norma. That was very important, because she carried that throughout her life. Remember what you said?
She did, yes. And we had talked about this many times.
Right.
It was at this Mass where we received her into the church. I gave her the sacrament of confirmation, which usually only a bishop can give, but a priest can do it if he receives the person into the Catholic Church in that same ceremony. So I was privileged to put that oil of confirmation on her head. And by the way, again, these are things you don't fake. I want to talk about her journey of healing with you. But the journey of spiritual preparation for the sacraments and entering into the church, like you mentioned, it was Father Robinson, who was also passed away, and myself, and some others who were involved. You don't fool around with those things.
No.
This woman was received into the Catholic Church, and what you're talking about was the comments I made after she received her first communion.
Right.
And I said, Norma, in the Catholic faith, we believe that the body of Christ makes us one body, brings us all together. And in Christ, all humanity is united to God. And that includes the unborn, and that includes all the babies whose lives were lost because your name was on that decision. But in receiving the body of Christ, we are reunited with all humanity, including those babies. So I said to her, at this moment, you are reconciled with those children. And she carried that with her all her life. She never forgot those
words. And I always remember her saying, though, that burden still, she knew the Lord forgave her. She knew all that, just like women who've had abortions, who've come through healing, know that. But then that forgiving of yourself for what you did is that ongoing journey, which actually Norma carried her whole life.
Well, people who now are, it's amazing to see AOC and these mindless pro-abortion fanatics out there, just jumping on. They're taking this hook, line, and sinker. That she made this up because they think that the whole movement that we're involved in is made up. They think the entire pro-life message is made up. This is, to start putting this in context, the people that are saying this, and they're going to be saying over the coming days, oh yeah, Norma just made this up, or this is just about making money. Oh yeah, right. They think the whole pro-life message is made up. They think that when we say the baby in the womb is a baby, that's made up. They think that when we say babies are dismembered by late-term abortion, that's made up. Right. They think that all of this is made up. They think that when we say we're ready to help women to choose life instead of abortion, that's made up. Well, of course they're gonna sound the same. They're gonna sing the same tune. That all this is made up. Why? Because that gets them off the hook and makes them feel like, oh yeah, we can continue to be in favor of the choice of killing a baby.
Right. But yeah, Father, let's take everyone back just for a minute, because like we said, people don't realize the truth about Norma's journey.
Yeah.
And so now she's pregnant with baby number 3, right? Knows that she doesn't want to have another baby right now. Of course, at the time, she couldn't have gotten an abortion in Texas, Dallas, Texas, where she lived. She was starving, basically living in the park. I forget the name of the park in Dallas, because basically her mother at that time had told her to get out of the house, so to speak, because she was already raising the other baby, her daughter Melissa. And she basically, Sarah Weddington found out about they were looking, Sarah and Weddington and Linda Coffey were looking for someone to start an abortion case, and they were just lawyers at a law school at the time, so they have to go back, right? And I think, Father, wasn't this like 1970 when this whole began, right?
Late 60s. Yeah.
Late 60s, actually. And first of all, they knew darn well Norma was already a couple months pregnant when they stumbled upon her, and they knew darn well they couldn't get her an abortion in time.
Right.
They weren't going to be able to help her at all. And she was very hungry, so they offered to buy her some lunch, and they had pizza. She always talks about the fact that at that pizza lunch, she signed on the dotted line because
Norma, why did you meet up with Sarah Weddington? Because I was hungry.
Because I was hungry.
She told us that so many times.
Oh my gosh, so many times in interviews she said, because I wanted food, I was hungry, And of course, now think about this, and I want our audience out here to think about this. You hire twice, but in all those years, from the late 60s to 73, Norma never saw Sarah Weddington again. Norma never spent one day in court. There's another fact. How many people know that? Not one day did she spend in court. And now you win. Your attorney wins a case for you. Don't they pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, we won, victory? No. Sarah Weddington, on January 22nd, 1973, Sarah Weddington never even contacted Norma McCorvey. In fact, Norma found out when she opened the door and picked up the Dallas paper and saw the story. And she told the person she was living with at the time, hey, you know what? And the person said, what? You see that person they're talking about? That's me.
And her friend said, yeah, and I'm the Queen of England.
Exactly, and now that story, by the way, that's from Norma's lips. That's exactly how she
let me
told
put. I want to put just a few things in context here. You and I got to know Norma in 1995. That's when.
Yeah.
First of all, what you described happened. The Roe v. Wade case came down. Nobody knew who the Jane Roe was.
No.
And the pro-abortion movement recruited her. She worked in a couple of abortion facilities herself. But the pro-abortion movement recruited her to come out and reveal her identity.
Right.
And I want to read, and I have two books here. When she did reveal her identity, this book came out called I Am Roe.
Right.
My Life, Roe v. Wade, and Freedom of Choice. Okay, and then...
Well, of course, then Norma said to me, well, I never wrote that book.
Yeah, no, of course
She
not.
said to me,
Right.
I didn't write one word of it. I sat and talked to someone, and then they came out
And
with
they
the
wrote
book.
it, right.
And they wrote it.
Then the second book, the story of her conversion to pro-life and to Christ, Won by Love. And then there was a third, smaller booklet that she wrote together with me,
My Journey
into the Catholic Church.
Right.
But this was interesting. On the day that they were having this big press conference, and attorney Gloria Allred, pro-abortion fanatic that she is, arranges this press conference for Norma. And you know what Norma says to her privately just before becoming known as the Roe v. Wade? She says, you know, I think abortion is wrong. I think abortion is wrong. And I wanted to reference that because the American people are conflicted about abortion.
Right.
They see the arguments on both sides. We are people of life. We love babies. We are people who love freedom and the ability of self-determination. So the American people are conflicted about abortion. Norma was conflicted too. She was conflicted about abortion while she was pro-abortion.
Right.
Because she wasn't pro-abortion.
Yeah.
She said, I think abortion is wrong. She was co-opted into this support for abortion precisely for the reasons you just mentioned, and precisely because she was the kind of person who, at the same time, and let's give people a little bit of insight into her personality. Mm-hmm. At the same time, she could be led in one direction or another,
and then both would go
but then always maintain a fierce independence.
Yes.
She was the kind of person that if you tried to help her with
you could
something,
only help her so much.
Only so much.
So much.
You come within a certain
and then she'd put the wall
radius. Yes. And everyone on the other side, first of all, her conflicts with the other side. Remember that hearing that she participated in front of Congress once it was known who she was. She was sitting there in this panel with all these pro-abortion leaders,
right.
And they all were introducing themselves. And they got to Norma, and ma'am, could you state your name and who you are?
Right.
Yes, I'm Norma McCorvey. I'm the Jane Roe of Roe v. Wade. And these other ladies, they wish they were. You know,
she had this sense of humor, like where she would just blurt out whatever she thought.
Sense of humor,
you know,
and also a sense of there was tension between
right.
her and these pro-abortion leaders. They didn't have much use for her.
No.
And she didn't have much respect for them.
No.
Oh, they just wished they were. That was her attitude.
She used to call them the cast of characters.
Yeah, well, we would always talk about that. Yeah, the cast of characters.
The cast of characters that took advantage of me.
Yeah.
And then I also remember, too, the stories of when she did work in the abortion clinic, especially the one that she worked in that was right next to Operation Rescue, Flip Benham.
Yes.
And that clinic, I remember her saying stories like, well, yeah, they kind of were getting to the point, I think, where they would like to fire me or get rid of me because I would ask the girls, well, do you really think you need an abortion?
Right. Do you know what they're going to do to that baby?
Do you know what they're going to do to the baby?
You're going to tear the baby apart, arms and the legs?
I don't know. And then, of course, they would get furious with her for being honest. But just because she asked the question, are you sure you want an abortion? Right? So she was like saying, like, you don't feel pressured into this now, honey. If you don't want it, you can leave now.
Yeah. Well, see, now, and it's important that we're bringing, friends, the reason that we're bringing this out is, for someone to come along and say, well, you know, her rejection of abortion was just an act because it was paid for by the Christian right, and the pro-life movement was forking her all kinds of money, well, then how do you explain what she said and what she did when she wasn't part of the pro-life movement?
That's right.
She was far more honest about abortion
Yes.
than the people around her that were holding her up as a pro-abortion trophy were.
That's right.
And they, you know, even Gloria Allred, she was willing to say, okay, you know, I'm not going to respond to this, oh, I think abortion is wrong thing. I've got her here. She's going to have the lights are on, the cameras are on. She's the Jane Roe v. Wade, so we're just going to go with that, you know, and
Right.
we'll kind of keep the rest that day. That was the relationship.
Right.
And Norma, so the American people are conflicted about abortion. Norma was conflicted about abortion. Here's the first thing, too, that we should say about her rejection of Roe v. Wade is that it was a rejection of Roe v. Wade. In other words, a decision that most people still don't know how extreme it is.
Right.
That it permits abortion throughout pregnancy.
Yeah. All 9 months.
Throughout pregnancy.
All 9 months. Right.
Now, Norma never bought into that, but she was the symbol of that. But when she rejected that for life.
Right.
Because there aren't very many of the American people that don't reject that.
Right.
But you really think that a healthy baby carried by a healthy mother who can survive outside the womb and who's in this, you know, 7th, 8th, or 9th month of their development should be able to be, you know, dismembered and killed?
Right.
You're not going to find many people saying yes to that. The
No.
statistics show that. This is a rejection of Roe v. Wade. And Norma said to us, you know, and again, let's make this clear. I think it's just offensive and absurd that somebody sweeps in at the end of her life with television cameras and microphones and stenographer pads and gets cozy with Norma and tries to rewrite what we lived through 22 years of personal history.
That's right.
You don't get to do that. And that's why, Jen, I want to focus for a moment here too on this was a journey. This wasn't just a person who was taking a position or answering an interviewer's question
No.
about Roe v. Wade or whether abortion should be legal. What do you think about abortion, or what do you think about the pro-lifers? No. This was a person with deep wounds who struggled to find some healing and some peace. Now, these were not things. Whatever people are going to say, and we'll have a lot more to say when we see this
Oh, yeah.
documentary.
I'm going to see it.
But whatever people want to say about, oh yeah, you know, I put on an act, you know, she said a lot of things to us about, the acts that she put on with the pro-abortion people, But again, you don't see this through an interview or a conversation. You see it through 2 decades of the ups and downs of a wrestling with your own pain. That we saw with our own eyes, and
yes.
including that Rachel's Vineyard retreat. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, you would say, like, what led her to go on a Rachel's Vineyard retreat with me? We were there together. You were there, Dr. Teresa Burke. Well,
And this is the world's largest ministry for healing after abortion. This is conducted in a confidential setting.
Right.
This is a very, very demanding and vigorous psychological, spiritual process of
Right.
facing the evil that you've been involved in, facing your wounds, and finding healing. It operates as one of our ministries, and Dr. Teresa Burke is a psychologist that founded this. So,
well, and Norma, you know, like I said, you just said, she was very disturbed over the years about her being the person who was used, basically signature, to start this whole thing. She wanted it overturned. She worked with Alan Parker and Alan Parker, the Justice Foundation, and Sandra Cano, who also was the Doe of Doe v. Bolton, to both ladies wanted to overturn the cases. And it just haunted Norma constantly about all these babies, you know, every day are dying.
it haunted her.
Yes.
She wasn't paid to have nightmares.
No. No.
She wasn't co-opted to shed tears.
Right.
She wasn't pretending to be burdened. She was burdened by
She
this.
was burdened. She was very burdened. She used to tell me sometimes about the nightmares she would have and the stories. And so you and I were doing a Rachel's Vineyard retreat with some others who were, I guess you would say, in more leadership roles. It wasn't just the average person. So we said, well, Norma, even though you haven't had an abortion, Teresa Burke said you could still come and you could memorialize your pain.
Because you
and
don't
the
have to have an
babies
abortion to be on
to
Rachel's
go through the
Vineyard.
process.
It's aggressive. It's
Right.
grieving. It's a process
grieving.
of grieving.
So she did go on that retreat, and I'll remember there was a certain point that the grief, the pain as she was going through it all became so intense that she ran out of the room, and Teresa Burke and I went after her.
I can
still
see her running out of that chapel.
Out of the chapel,
Yeah.
right. And of course we spent some time talking to her, consoling her, the tears that were flowing. And by the time we got to the end of the whole weekend, Norma had made a giant leap. And she did say, while I'll never fully feel the burden lifted, I feel like I took a step. And what she said was that up to that point, when she was going around speaking, she called her ministry Row No More.
Right.
But then after that weekend, I remember her saying to me, Janet, you got to help me. One day she would call me. As a matter of fact, she used to tease. We had this teasing. She would call me Woman of the East. I would call her Woman of the West because I lived in New York and she lived in Dallas. We were good friends. And so she's called me maybe the week after the retreat and said, all right, Woman of the East, you have to help me. I said, what? I can't be Row No More ministry. I said, okay, what do you want to do? Well, I've crossed over into a new life now. I've lifted this burden at least somewhat off of myself. So I want to be crossing over. I'm crossing over into this new life. I'm crossing over into getting rid of this pain. And so that was the next name, Crossing Over Ministry, that she came up with, and we helped to get a basic little website she started. And the other thing too about Norma is, the pro-life movement. I mean, I wasn't around when she first converted with Reverend Flip. I mean, I was working with you as a volunteer, basically.
Yes.
But she right away, people did want to have her go speak at banquets, and
this is the knee-jerk reaction,
right? Yeah, which is
know.
Bad, getting these people who convert right out on the road.
Yeah.
But I can remember, people think right now because you have these speakers bureaus, right? Ambassadors, is one of them, where people get paid a nice sum of money and they handle all the details and all that. But back in these days, this was back in the 90s, there were no speakers bureaus, at least not in the pro-life movement. And people would just find people and say, oh, get this person to speak. And so people would call Norma on the phone or her cell phone and invite her to speak. And she would go. And to be honest, Father, a lot of people, they didn't pay a fortune of money. Norma didn't make a fortune of money out there on the speaker circuit. And a couple of times where she felt she just couldn't get on a plane one day, she called me and she said, okay, Woman of these, I'm too sick. I can't get on the plane. I have a banquet this weekend. You need to step in and tell my story. And sure enough, that's what I remember. The last minute I had to jump on a plane, and I think I went to South Carolina and spoke at a banquet for her. And I did it a few times. But she still had this pain in her of, while she took steps to heal, she still had, I think, a sense of guilt that, my gosh, it goes back to the playground story, the empty playgrounds. There's a lot of that stuff, about Norma out there. But but then near the end of her life, as you know, she suffered from COPD, for those who don't know Norma's illness. And she actually died, young, you consider, age for a woman.
69.
But 69. And, she, like I said, she was my older sister. And near the end there, she first of all, she kept her faith right to the end. A priest came, she belonged to a parish, and she eventually moved from Dallas to Katy, Texas, by her daughter Melissa. And she eventually, Melissa got her into an assisted living place. And then eventually, and just to show how conflicted and crazy things would come out of Norma's mouth. I remember one day she called me. Don't you remember? She was so upset that Melissa got me into this place, and I have a nice apartment and everything, but she stole my money. Remember she said Melissa stole her money? which wasn't the case. Melissa did all the paperwork with social services to get her into assisted living. But Norma, again, like you said before, Father, when you start helping her a little too much, then she gives you pushback. And even to her own daughter, she was like, look what Melissa did to me. I said, and I had to explain to her, Norma, Melissa didn't do anything terrible. She got you a better place to live, didn't she? And she says, yes, Janet. I said, well, she didn't take your money. You don't even have that much money.
See,
you know?
and this is one of about 10,000 stories.
Oh my gosh,
we
could
tell
tell. Yeah.
that I want to help people to understand, to get this little glimpse into the fact that Norma was very, not only very wounded, but she could be very reactive to the wound.
Yes.
I mean, I never had a conversation with her actually where we didn't end up laughing, and I think you had the same experience.
Right. At the end.
She was able to find humor in life and things to laugh about. But there was always also that wound, and you know, she would go into situations like this where she, you know, would look at what somebody did or what somebody said, and she was on, you know, there were many conversations where we were just letting her vent, you know, a little volcano exploding, and then would do just what you just said, help her to see the perspective of what was really going on.
Oh, matter of fact, I don't have my cell phone here in the studio, but I saved on my cell phone one of her final messages when she was angry at what Melissa or somebody was doing.
Yeah.
And I just saved it for the fun of it because I thought, this is typical Norma, lashing out at somebody, her own daughter, who's helping her. And then after she calms down a bit, you can point out, and then she would say, oh, okay, I get it. All right, they were trying to help me.
Yeah, exactly. Right,
That's the way she would be, all the time. So from what I understand, I haven't seen this documentary yet, but from what I understand, someone offered her some money the last maybe year of her life to do a story about her life. Now, again, remember that Norma was on a public assistance in assisted living. So if you're going to offer her some money, even if it's a small amount, she's going to think this is good. Mm-hmm. And so they probably just let the camera roll and let her talk. And like we said, she can be very incoherent at times when jumping from this thought to that thought. Well, if you have a good editor and you get a whole string of her babbling, well, I could piece it together and probably make it look like it really wasn't like. Mm-hmm. It's very simple to do. You know how they could take people out of the sound bites of the world. They take one little phrase out of context and it looks like the person said something else, and that's not what they really said when you hear the whole phrase of what they said. Mm-hmm. But they take one little snip out and it just changes, So, listen, Father, we spoke to her the day she died.
That's right. We
were in Rome on a business trip, and Melissa called us, her daughter, to let us know that death was imminent. Her respiration was shallow in her breathing. And I remember her distinctly saying to us, make sure, Father and Janet, you keep trying to overturn my case, please. Overturn Roe, please. I can't live to see that day. But please, Father, promise me you're going to keep doing it.
People might see, these interview clips on a documentary. You didn't see the tears that she shed over Roe v. Wade.
That's right.
Over the years. You didn't see in the quiet, confidential settings the grief she endured and the pain she carried from having been the one who helped unleash abortion on America, which was never her intention. It's like I say, if someone comes to you and says, the sibling that you knew all your life was different from what you knew, you would say to them, who do you think you are trying to tell us this? And I think that's very much the reaction to this latest effort of the pro-aborts to justify themselves. Are you looking at comments?
I can't read them. I don't have my reading glasses on, Father. I can't see them. Can you? I'm trying to see if this.
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Oh, because otherwise I can't answer a question if I can't read it. I did bring my reading glasses into the studio, so it's all blur to me.
Yeah.
No, but I think Norma would be very upset right now, knowing.
She'd have some curse words to say. I'll tell you the truth.
Yeah, she could curse like a truck driver when she wanted to.
She would have some curse words to say.
Yeah. But there's also a lot of fun stories to tell about Norma. Sweet stories. She was very kind. Like I said, I had stayed in her home. She stayed in my home, over the years. I remember when I stayed in her home in Texas, she had this cat, Maxine. And I'm not a big fan of cats. Those who know me know that. And all of a sudden, Maxine is walking back and forth across the headboard.
The headboard of the bed. Yeah,
On
I could still see the cat there.
I see the cat there walking back and forth. And another funny thing is Norma loved bagels.
Bagels.
And you can't get a good bagel down in Texas. So I used to be her supplier. I used to, every so often she'd call me and say, okay, women of the East, I need some more bagels. I said, all right, Norma. And her two favorites was she loved the onion bagel and the everything bagel. And I used to put them in a FedEx box and ship them down to her. And another thing, which, Father, when she was in assisted living, she'd call me again another day when she needed stuff, and I sent her some outfits and things, like the new nightgowns and stuff. And she said, Jen, my reading glasses hurt, my eyes hurt, I can't read my Bible. So I got her. Remember, we got her the big, large print Bible. And I sent that down to her. So, I mean...
Yeah, she wanted, exactly. She wanted the Bible. You remember what she did in her spare time in those final years of her life when we would visit her there at the home of Angie.
Right.
Angie, who she lived with for 3 years just before she went into the assisted living facility. Remember what she was doing in a lot of her spare time there at the dining room table?
No.
Making rosaries.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember
By
that.
hand.
By
Making
hand.
rosaries by hand. I
Right.
could still see that. They had the boxes of the different,
Beads, yeah.
beads and everything. And
Well, Angie taught her how to do it. Yeah.
yeah, and she loved doing
Yeah,
it. She
she
said,
did.
I want to
Yeah.
help people to pray. She herself found a lot of comfort in the rosary.
She did.
In
She
fact,
did.
it was the rosary. Just putting these thoughts together, that was when I knew she wanted to become a Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Because going back to the mid-90s,
Right.
and she would, like I said, I first met her in 95, and she had, Reverend Flip Benham had baptized her, and in my travels into Dallas, she would come sometimes when I was saying Mass. And then there was the funny holy water story. Where we blessed her house. Tell people that story just as a little interlude.
Well, one of our trips to Dallas, you were there, Father, and Norma said, oh, come over to my house. I want you to bless my house.
Yeah.
And so I made you come right from the airport, so you didn't even have any holy water or anything with you. So you asked Norma, do you have any holy water? And she says, well, Father, no. Why? How do you get it? Can we make holy water? So I remember you saying how, well, Norma, I'm a priest, so yeah, I can make holy water. So you said, do you have a container of some sort? So she had this big jug with a lid on top, and you said, well, Norma, you want that much holy water? She goes, oh yeah, that's good. I want to have a lot, Father. Who knows when you're coming back again? So she filled the thing, and you did all the right rituals and the blessing, and then you blessed her home, and then she put the holy water away. She put it in the fridge. And then, what was it? I don't know.
A couple of weeks later, I was on the phone with her.
Yeah. And she said, oh, Father, I need more holy water. You said, Norma, what did you do with it? So tell them.
Yeah, my friend and I, we forgot it was holy water. We drinked it.
Right, she drank the holy water. Yeah, and so you said, all right, Norma, next time I come, or ask Father Robinson, he'll get you some more holy water, but you're not supposed to be drinking it. She goes, I promise, Father, I won't drink any more holy water.
But that was at the time when she was, she was
on a
interested
journey.
in Catholicism.
Right.
She had a little smattering of it in her past. And she would start asking me questions about the Mass and the faith. And I said, okay, I just answered her questions. I never said, oh, you should be a Catholic or anything like that. We were together for pro-life events there in the Dallas area. So then, one night when we were on a pro-life event together, we were in the car going from dinner to the event. She's sitting in the back seat. I'm in the front. And she says, Father Frank, she says, I have a question for you. Is there such a thing as a born-again Catholic? Because she had always heard, Reverend Flip and our evangelical friends talking about being born again. It's biblical, is what Jesus said.
That's right.
And I said, well, yes, of course there is. Yeah. I mean, Catholics are born again too. We're all born again in Christ. Oh, you could be a born again Catholic. Okay. And that got me thinking, she's really trying to piece together in her mind how Catholicism fits in with the Christianity that she was learning about, right? Mm-hmm. So then, the day that I realized she really seems to be on a journey. Well, first of all, we were together at that Human Life International conference.
Right.
And
that was when it was in Houston, Texas. That year.
Yes. And remember, that was the conference at which she came up to me privately in the hallway, and she said, "Father, I had a dream. I don't know how to interpret it." She said, "But the Lord said to me, I am going to be calling you home soon." And she said, "What does this mean? I'm afraid it means I'm going to die."
Yeah, I know.
I said, "Norma, I don't know what it means." I said, "But ask the Lord. Just ask him.
Ask him.
He'll reveal it to you." A week or two later, she emails me, and I still have all these messages and everything. And she said, "Father, he revealed to me what it means. I'm meant to come into the Catholic Church."
Wow.
But it was just before that, she said, "How do you say the rosary?" That's when I realized she was on a journey. When you say, "How do I say the rosary?"
Right.
Well, then, something is really happening
Someone's
there.
clicking. And what people don't realize, too, is that Father Robinson, who, is now deceased, is a Dominican, and he actually met with her every single week. She would go to the priory, where he lived, and she would go for Bible study and spiritual lessons and about the faith. I mean, this is, she didn't just 1, 2, 3 say, "Oh, I think I want to become Catholic." This was a journey that she was on. And then she would be calling you and talking to you. I mean, extensive conversations of the faith and questions and questions and questions. She took it very seriously. And so, her coming into the Catholic Church was a journey.
She, the last few times, when she was no longer doing interviews, but wanted to convey messages to pro-life gatherings, I would often bring messages from her to pro-life gatherings.
Right.
In that those last months of her life, what she would often say was, tell the young people to keep on this cause,
Right.
to keep defending their even younger brothers and sisters. She wanted to see she was very encouraged to see the involvement of the young people in the pro-life movement, and wanted to explicitly urge them. Those were some of her last messages to the movement. But
and the people who were with her when she died, of course, her daughter Melissa was there. Our good friend Karen Garnett was there at the hospice the day she died, because they were the ones that helped, because she said, "Call Father Frank." She had her rosary in her hands.
Yeah, she always clung to her faith.
She clung to her faith. This is not a woman who on her deathbed switched positions. You know what I mean?
No, she did not. We can say categorically.
Categorically, we know
Nor
that.
was she putting on an act. You're not putting on an act.
And when we spoke
when
to her
you
father,
go through,
I thought back about that night. We were in Rome, so the time difference between Rome and Dallas was, it was, for us, we were going into evening mass. It was a vigil mass around 6 o'clock in the evening. And she died. We spoke to her right before we went into mass. I could see it like it happened yesterday. We were in the back seat of a car. We were driven. Actually, we were with our good friend Joan Lewis from EWTN Rome Bureau, and we were on our way to this church. And we got dropped off. We said goodbye to Norma because we were going into church, and we said, "We'll call you as soon as we're out of mass again." And I remember her saying something like, "I may not be here, Father." She could barely talk to us and breathe. And sure enough, she passed away at the moment of the consecration. Because when we came out of church, of course, I put my phone back on, and it was blowing up. It was Melissa and Karen calling us to say Norma had passed.
And we didn't get to enjoy that dinner too much with Joan because all the media were trying to get comments from us.
That's right, for the rest of the night.
Yeah,
And,
literally the rest of the night.
and of course, for us,
because we were in Rome.
We were in Rome.
6 hours ahead.
Yeah, and then of course we did go to her funeral.
I celebrated the funeral.
Yeah.
I led the funeral and preached the homily
At her request. Her request.
Yeah.
So again,
and we had pro-life leaders there.
There were so many pro-life leaders there at her funeral. So for a woman who switched, like they're claiming on her deathbed, why did she want to talk to her favorite priest?
Well, there's going to be a number of ridiculous claims being made and twisting of her words. First of all, that somehow or another she changed her mind yet again. Secondly, that somehow she had never changed her mind and was putting on an act. So then was she putting on an act with Gloria Allred when she said she thought abortion was wrong, or when she actually saved lives in the abortion clinic where she was working?
Right.
Because she was telling those women what the abortionists would not tell them.
Right. She would tell the truth.
They're the liars. This is why they always accuse people of lying. or they want to paint a story everyone's lying, because that's what they do. That's what they do all the time. That's their profession, is to lie. And then some people say, oh, that she was paid. This is the most ridiculous thing, that she was paid by us to be pro-life. We were struggling to help her. Right. She wasn't, we were first of all, we wanted to make it clear to her that she could not rely on the pro-life movement for her sustenance. Right. That goes back to what you were saying before, that she would obviously get all these speaking engagements and whatnot. And at a certain point, we were realizing, she can't keep up with this. No. You're flying here and there and changing time zones and keeping sleeping in strange places and always on call and whatnot. I said, you can't do this. And she would say, well, if I don't do the speaking, how am I going to make a living? And we said to her, well, first of all, your story is out there. You don't have to end up killing yourself just because this is a job. It's a source of some sustenance, because people invite you to come out to speak. They're going to pay your airfare. They're going to put you up in a hotel, and they're going to give you a stipend for the event. That's what we all do, right? That's what, like you say, speakers bureaus. This is what.
But back when she was doing it,
she wasn't on any. Well, we were doing it for a while, arranging or interfacing between her and the groups that were trying to invite her. But we were also making clear, to her that, listen, your story is out there in writing, in video. You don't have to be going out there personally. Right. And as far as sustenance, you're not alone. If you don't have a means of income, you're not alone. We will help you when there's a legitimate need. There were bills of hers that we got people to help to pay. Right. But, it's amazing how people that don't share our values will twist that and try to make it look like it was made up. I'm sure a lot of you would have questions, so listen, we see the comments coming in here. Some of you are on Facebook, some of you are on Periscope. Go ahead and talk to us, friends, and because we want to clarify for you a little bit more about all this. My phone is here, and pro-life leaders are calling me, and this is ridiculous.
Like I said, I haven't seen the documentary, but I guarantee you they have taken footage over the years. Matter of fact, if they want to see some footage of Norma, we have at Priests for Life a special page.
Yes.
priestsforlife.org/Norma.
Norma, right.
In fact, because of being stuck in with this quarantine, over the years, Father Frank and I have interviewed Norma several times. We did it way back in the 90s when she first converted.
Then throughout the 2000s, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But when she first converted, we had her on Defending Life on EWTN. Then Father Pavone and I did a show called Gospel of Life, and we interviewed her twice there because we used to film that show down in Texas.
Right there in
Denton, Texas at Life Dynamics, our good friend Mark Crutch's place. And so Norma would come over every so often. We would interview her. But Father, I wanted to bring out a point about Norma speaking. If she went out on her own to speak and had to give a talk, a lot of people would say, oh my gosh, she's not that good of a speaker. Oh my gosh, it's so...
She rambled.
What we found the best formula was you had to kind of lead her along, meaning you asked her one question, a brief question, and then she would answer that question. Then you'd go to the next part that you wanted to know, and you would ask her the next question. And if you did that, she was wonderful. And if they go to our website, priestsforlife.org/Norma, we do have the footage up there of these
Well, I would
interviews.
like to actually, our studio techs here could get the interview footage. We have 3 interviews of Norma that we recently showed. And we can show those this afternoon, for people to watch. But let's see what some of these comments are. Somebody was just saying comment just went to the bottom of the page. Okay, so first of all, one of our friends here watching on YouTube. So what do I tell someone that says it was an act? Tell her the people who know her best know better.
No,
it was no act. You don't put on an act when the things that if you're going to put on an act, and sustain it for
22 years.
22 years that we knew her, in good times and in bad, in public and in private, in happiness and in sadness. Like I said at the outset of this program, if you have a sibling and someone comes to you a few years after they died and starts telling you a completely different story, you know that person.
Right. And like I said,
that's
she stayed at my home in Staten Island, New York. I stayed in her home in Dallas, Texas.
She was like a sister to us.
Like a sister.
We were with her for 22
Sometimes
years.
she shared my hotel room with me when we were out at a pro-life conference. I mean,
you take it from the source.
Oh, my goodness.
Who's saying that she put on an act? Somebody who got her to say that in front of a camera?
A clip that they edited up and put together?
Yeah, and even if you didn't edit it. The fact of the matter is that it's the journey she made that tells the story.
That's right.
It's the journey. You don't fake the kind of pain that I was one of her spiritual counselors. You don't fake the kind of pain that leads you through a journey of healing that you have to face. Anybody would run away from this. You don't pretend to go through something like that. The process itself smokes you out. This is an intensive psychological and spiritual process. Somebody was saying somebody said that she was paid. Rob Schenk said the same thing. What do you mean she was paid?
Well, first of all, let's go back to Rob Schenk for just a quick moment, because Rob Schenk has gone over to the other side recently, as you know. And so whatever Rob said, she paid by who?
Yeah. It's like let's pause on that and think about that for a moment. Fill in the blank. So and so said she was paid, or Norma said she was paid. Paid for what?
For what? To give a talk at a banquet?
You don't think we are too?
Right.
Hey, listen.
Oh wait,
we're paid. Wait. We don't believe.
Wait, how much does Hillary Clinton get paid when she goes out, or Obama, or that one paid?
Because nobody should get paid for anything.
Right.
That's
and first of all, the amount of money that she got paid back in the 90s, if she gave a talk at a banquet, my God, brothers and sisters, it was a couple of $100 plus an airfare. We helped her
pay her bills.
We helped her pay her bills. She would call sometimes and say, Janet, Father Frank, I don't have enough money to pay my electric bill. So
now you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, because I would say
because
to her,
if we ignored
Norma,
her,
how much is the electric bill?
Yeah.
And she would say like, $150. I said, okay, don't worry. I'll make you out a check. We'll FedEx it. You'll have it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so we would send just a little bit extra, like, she needs 150. We'll send her 200, so she has a little bit extra.
So so on the one hand, you don't want someone to be destitute.
Right.
Because if they're your friend and if they're in your movement and you ignore them, then the story would be, these people, they
abused her.
They didn't even help her. They didn't even help her.
Right.
And then when you help her, it's like, you just paid her to be pro-life. That is so absurd.
Ridiculous. First of all, they act like for 22 years we had her on the payroll or a salary. Absolutely not. We would send her gifts now and then when she needed it, as she needed it. It wasn't like, please. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, look at Steve Rhodes. Hey, Steve, you better be careful, Steve.
What?
We helped her pay her bills. They admit they paid her. Now this is
one electric bill. Yeah. One electric bill, Steve. One electric bill in 22 years. I mean, all it meant
who the hell is this Steve?
Oh, my, who the heck are you, Steve? I mean, what we're saying is, when she had needs throughout those 22 years, if she called us, we gave her a helping hand. You don't give a cousin, a friend, a helping hand?
Yeah.
How many people have all of you lent a few bucks to?
Look.
Your whole life?
Our communications director is sending a message. A documentary claims she was paid $450,000. Yeah, right. Somebody gave her a check. Norma, if you say you're pro-life, we're going to give you... No. And on the other hand...
Who has that kind of money?
If you look at someone who's giving talks in a movement over the quarter of a century, you're giving talks as part of a movement, you don't think if you add up what people paid to invite you to fly across the country, get on a plane, stay at a hotel for 3 nights, speak at a banquet,
Father, she didn't,
and you add that up
that
over
kind of money. No way.
She did. There's no way.
First of all,
but what are they? What are they counting up?
First of
all the payments of all the trips of 25 years.
No, but first of all, it wasn't even that amount of money, because first of all, if you knew Norma McCorvey, She drove a jalopy of a car.
That car was, when I saw
my
that car
gosh.
in that driveway.
When she used
I
to
said,
drive
"What
me
in the
around,
world
I
is
used to say,
this?"
Norma, is this car
We were not
we have
safe to
go?
get into it. We didn't feel safe getting
So
into it.
so if she was paid to be pro-life for 22 years, she would have had a much nicer car. Number one, she had a very small, almost like a cottage home in Dallas.
Yeah, no, it was incredible.
Eventually, she lost, and
Yeah.
that's why she
And
went to go
listen-
live with Angie.
Exactly. And listen, let's set the record straight. This is good that some of these folks are coming on here that want to. Some folks are coming on because they want to hear the truth. But
Right.
look at Steve again. Operation Rescue also paid her because she works for them.
She worked for them.
Look at the stupidity.
wait,
Hey,
wait,
Steve, you
wait,
really
wait.
got to come on live here,
Come
Steve,
on,
because
come on,
you're
Steve.
really an idiot.
She had a job. They hired her. Okay, because this
Because
happened.
that's not permitted
She
in this
quit.
movement.
No. She quit working right next door to the abortion clinic. She was on the verge probably getting fired because she kept telling the women the truth.
Yeah.
She met Flip Benham and the little girl Emily and the others and went
Right,
to church. So she
right.
decided, you know what? The heck with these people. I'm not going to wait till they kick me out. I'm going to go next door. And then she went next door. She goes, okay, if I'm not working there, what are you guys going to do for me? And I said, Flip Benham said, well, Ms. Norma,
We'll give you a job.
We'll give you a
Yeah.
job. I think she was the receptionist. She answered the phone at Operation Rescue, and they paid her to WORK, work.
And
Hey,
yet-
Steve, don't you get paid to work?
You know, and this is amazing.
this
but
is
this is
so
what we're gonna, This is what we're
ridiculous.
going to see. And but you
Oh.
get paid by Priest Wife. So do I. So do 50 other people.
Oh, my
And you know
goodness.
what? Someday someone's going to make a documentary about us that
We were paid
pro-life.
to be
pro-life.
pro-life.
We were paid to be
Paid to
pro-life.
be pro-life. Oh, does that mean that OSC is paid to be an abortion-loving liberal?
You mean AOC?
AOC, yeah. Is she being
She's
paid?
paid. I think she
She's
gets paid.
Well, she does get paid. She's in Congress, so they get paid quite a bit.
I think priests get paid to be priests too. Bishops get paid big salaries. Bishops get paid to be bishops.
Bishops, yeah, right.
Yep.
Okay. Hey, I don't know. Give me a break. But, you know, like I said, Norma, you know, she was a very interesting character. And I don't think there's a person that she knew that she didn't at one time get mad at. I'm not talking to you now.
She got mad at us.
Oh, yeah. And then the phone would, I used to say, all right, well, Father, Norma yelled at me again. He said,
Yeah,
okay, give her in a few days or a few weeks. Then I get a phone call.
That's why I said before at the outset,
Right.
we've been with her in all the ups and downs.
Ups and
And some of the
downs.
downs were against us too. You know, it's like this was a person who, I mean, first of all, anybody for 22 years.
Right.
You're going to go through just about everything,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
Unless it's a very superficial relationship. This was not a superficial relationship that we
No.
had with her.
No.
And
But she would get mad and yell. And I would always try to reason with her. And sometimes you could reason with her, but sometimes you couldn't. But I knew when I was back in her good graces, when the phone would ring and I would hear, "Hi, women of the East, it's bagel time again." So I knew then, okay, she was over whatever got her upset, and now we could talk again. You know, so I love Norma McCorvey. I loved her dearly. And on one of my early trips to Dallas, she actually told me she had to make me a Texan. And she took me shopping for cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, which I still have. I still have them at home. And, you know, of course, I paid for them and bought them, but she picked them out. And so I had my Texas boots and my cowboy hat from Norma. So I just think I know it would pain her very much to know that they kind of took whatever footage they had and they switched it up or whatever they've done to it. I don't know. I haven't seen it. But I think it would hurt her very much to see what they've done. Because, you know, the people who were with her at the very end, I mean, like I said, Karen Garnett was there, her daughter Melissa was there, we spoke to her. I mean, it had to be no more than a half hour to 40 minutes before she actually passed away. So this was not a woman that flipped, changed her mind or anything else. She was a faithful Catholic, a faithful pro-lifer till the last breath
she
took.
actually hated people that pretended. For people to say she's a pretender, that's really that conveys such an utterly profound ignorance
Right.
of Norma.
Of Norma.
This
That's
is
right.
exactly the thing she hated.
Right.
That's why she sat on that panel. Yeah, these other ladies, they want to be the I'm the Jane Roe of Roe v. Wade, but they just want to be, you know.
Right.
I mean, she was a woman of sometimes harsh honesty.
Oh, yeah.
This is why in the abortion clinic, again, she was on the pro-abortion side. She was working in the abortion clinic. Oh, I think for, what's that little 3-letter word when you work in a place and they give you
Job.
pay.
Pay. She was paid. She was paid.
By whom?
The abortion clinic.
The abortion clinic,
Oh, yeah.
where she worked. So anyways, brutal honesty.
So all she did was she stopped getting the paycheck from the abortion clinic, and then she started getting the paycheck
From her new job.
From her new job,
Yeah.
J-O-B, job.
But to say that's why a person takes a moral position
That's crazy.
on an issue of such fundamental importance is, let's say it what it is, because we see it in society, we see it in politics, we see it against President Trump, we see it in the church, we see it against us, I see it against me. It's 2 words that describe the sin that we're about to see committed over and over publicly. AOC, it's a sin that you commit. It's a sin that all kinds of people commit. Rash
Judgment.
judgment.
That's right.
Rash judgment. Let's just take hook, line, and sinker something we hear about another person that says how crooked they were, how dishonest they were, how insincere they were. How do we all fall into rash judgment so easily? How do we do it? How do we do it? It's one of the most common sins. Let's see.
You have to read the comments, but I don't remember reading glasses with me.
Uh-huh.
So you'll have
The
to
Norma, this George is making an interesting comment. The Norma McCorvey Fusion GPS Steele Dossier. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Let's see here. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Yes, that is
right.
that is an important commandment that it might be a good idea for. See, and this is where, journalists, like we said, like this afternoon, the LA Times and some other publications online coming out with these things. And, it's not like they were saying, hey, there's going to be a documentary, in which the creators of it claim that this and that and the other was said. No, the headlines are already, well, Norma she really didn't convert. She really didn't.
Well, also,
friends,
Father,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what a person is going to say at any point in time.
Right.
Like, what I'm trying to say here is, you get Norma McCorvey on camera saying something. That's a snapshot of what she's saying that moment on camera.
Right.
We were there for the journey.
That's right.
We were there for the journey. And, this is where you get to know what's really going on.
Well, I mean, what happened to fair and balanced reporting? I mean, this documentary is coming out and you hear what it's about. If you're a good reporter, then don't you want to interview people on both sides to kind of weigh out what's going on? I didn't hear our phones ringing from the press. Hey, LA Times, would you like to interview us? And interview Karen Garnett, interview her daughter Melissa.
Yeah.
Let's make the list. Why don't you interview people who actually knew her over an extended period of time?
Yeah, they quote the documentary. That's their level of journalistic research
Right.
here is quoting the documentary.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really deep. That's profound.
That's profound.
And it's a question of, and it's not even, like you said, it's not even just about being of both sides of the issue.
Right.
I'm talking about personal knowledge.
Right.
We have the respect of relationships to talk to the people who had the relationships. That's what this comes down to. Did she convert honestly and sincerely to the pro-life position? As sure as we're sitting here, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The things she sacrificed, the hell that she went through, the journey, and remember, we're talking about people who guided her through a spiritual and psychological journey. We're talking about a priest counseling someone spiritually. Unless you want to say that our whole profession is a fake, and that's of course what some people do believe.
Of course.
But unless you're ready to say that and believe that, you've got to give some weight to the fact that we walked this journey with her.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't on camera that this unfolded.
No.
It was in the private places. It was in her home. It was in her church. It was on the Rachel's Vineyard retreat. It was in the confidential emails and the conversations. Not over 3 hours, not over 1,000 hours of interviews, not over the last 3 years of her life or the last year. Over
Many
2.5 decades.
Right, 2.5
so,
decades.
you know, it would be nice to people to pay a little bit of respect. So it's like, how many of these people that now are trying to say this are going to be, you know, or did come to it? Was I asleep when they called?
No, Father, they didn't
I
call
wasn't
to
asleep.
No, they didn't call
Oh.
to interview you or me or Karen Garnett, or I can make the nice long list of people who knew her in those final days of her life on earth. No phone calls to any of us, none
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Well, because investigative reporting, they do zero.
Yeah,
Zippo,
you see, and
zero.
Steve still doesn't get it because this
What's
is
he
what.
say- oh, what's
see, this
Steve-
is.
I can't
but-
read it, Father.
No,
What's
but
he
see, but
saying
this is
now?
where. But this is where. This is how this story is going to unfold in the next few days. If they think Norma could lie on camera, then she could also have lied to them.
For 22
Not when
years?
you know someone for 22 years and you're
No.
not on camera.
Right,
No,
right.
no, it doesn't
No.
work that way.
22 years, Steve. Not
because
quick interview.
because no, it's not what you say on camera.
It's a
and it's
friendship.
not a lie. No one is saying that Norma lied.
Right.
What we're saying is what happened over 22 years of
Right.
not lying. That's what we're talking about.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a good actress. Yes, yes.
Who said that?
Norma. Yeah, I'm a good actress. Yeah, right.
Well, that's the kind of flip answer she
That's
would
what. That's
say.
always, that's
Oh, come
exactly
on.
how she talked.
Remember the time she used to call you, Father, and say, "Oh, so Father, what are the creatures doing?" She used to kid around about the animals, the farm animals, and all that.
Yeah,
Remember
that's
that?
right. That's
And then
right.
one day she sent Father. When I opened up the box, I said, "Father, you got a gift from Norma." He says, "What is it?" I open up the box, and it's this glass-looking house. And inside is grass and all these little miniature animals, right? Remember that? Farm animals. And I called Norma. I said, "Hey, Norma. Hi, Louise. How you doing?" I said, "Good." I said, "I got the gift. I'm bringing it to Father now." "Oh, good. Hey, Father. How do you like now? You got your own set of little creatures."
And you know how that started. We brought her out to. We brought her and Sandra Kano. Now, that's another
Right.
one that,
Yes.
that we have to talk about. No, we brought her. She came to my the commencement ceremony where I was given an honorary doctorate
Right, at
the
Steubenville.
Franciscan University of Steubenville.
Right.
So we're out there driving either to or from the university.
And there was a lot of
through the
farmland.
plains of Ohio
Right.
there, and in Pennsylvania, and we're driving along, and she's in the car, and Sandra Kano's in the car. Was the doe of
Roe and Doe.
Dovey
We
Bolton?
had them both in the car.
Yeah, and we're just engaging in small talk, and we look out the window, and there's these animals
Yeah,
grazing on the
cows
hillside,
and
and I said creature. I said, yeah, look at all the creatures there, and you and she started laughing at that, and then it took on
Took
a life of its own.
itself,
Hey,
yes.
Father, how are the creatures?
How
doing?
were the creatures doing?
So,
So she made a creature farm for you that you could have on display.
Yeah. But we had thousands of these kinds of moments with
Yeah,
Norma,
Norma.
and you know.
Like I said, she would laugh, she would cry, both emotions all the time, depending on what was going on in her life. And
Here's the bottom line. The first time I spoke to her, when I first met her, I said, "So you're the Roe of Roe v. Wade?" And she said, "No." She said, "I was the Roe of Roe v. Wade.
Right.
I am now a new creation in Christ."
Right.
That's not something to be taken lightly.
Right.
She lived that. She was faithful to that. And you know what else? It's the rejection of Roe that was at the core of this, the idea, and I think we have to use this opportunity not only to tell Norma's story, as we've traced here now, and we'll show people the footage of her interviews and whatnot, which is a little see, we don't, let me summarize it this way, and then we'll give our friends a blessing and go on to the other work we have to do here. We don't make Norma's case through the interview clips that we're going to show of her. We have all kinds of interview clips of her. But this is not a story of battling interview clips. Right. Oh, she said this here. Oh, but she said that in the documentary. Right. Oh, but she said this here. That's for the superficial knowledge.
Right.
Oh, what did she say at a certain moment when a camera was in her face? But again, we're talking from the 22 years of personal knowledge.
Right.
The emails, the conversations, the shared experiences, the personal journey. It was a journey. It was a journey.
Yeah.
It was a journey of pain. It was a journey of healing. It was a journey of witness. It was a journey of struggle. It was a journey of speaking up for life. It was a journey of trying to make ends meet. It was a journey of
well, as they say,
prayer.
We were with her in good times and in bad.
In good times and bad.
Right.
And ultimately, the rejection of Roe is what we have to use this moment to teach people about. Not just that Roe herself rejected Roe, which she did and always meant, but it's that America rejects Roe, because never at any time has a majority of the American people, never at any time and not today, believed that you should be able to kill a baby throughout pregnancy, whether healthy or sick, whether the baby could live outside the womb or not, that whether the mother was healthy or sick, that at any time and for any reason you could kill that baby. Norma McCorvey stood as the woman whose name was used for that decision, but who rejected it just like America rejects it.
Right.
You don't kill babies, and you don't stand for a policy that allows you to kill them throughout pregnancy. America has never believed in that, and that's what we need to use this moment to recognize that. Why are we allowing that to still be our policy if we don't believe in that? All right. Well, thanks, Jenna, for sharing these some of these insights.
I'm sure we'll have to be coming back again. And hey, LA Times, be in touch. We'll be happy to talk to you.
Come on, LA Times. Did they call my cell phone here?
No, they didn't call your cell phone, Father. But
because you know what? All sorts of people are going to be talking about this. They couldn't care less about the truth of what they're talking about.
Yeah. But go to our Priest for Life website, right on the homepage there. I don't know if Krista put the action alert, but otherwise, just go to priestforlife.org/Norma, where we've always had this information. See, we just didn't snap quick. Oh, let's throw something together. We've always had this information up there about Norma for people to look at and research. Because one thing Father Frank and I do, we promised both Sandra Cana and Norma McCorvey that we would be tirelessly speaking about the fact that both of them deeply regretted that they were used for those decisions. They worked their entire up to the end of their lives to try to overturn those decisions. And like I said, one of the dying things we said to Norma was, she asked us, please continue to work to overturn Roe v. Wade. And that's what we promised.
Chattanooga, Tennessee. Let's conclude with that little vignette. Dovie Bolton, Mary Doe, companion case of Roe v. Wade, she also rejected abortion. She always rejected abortion. We were together with Norma and Sandra at the National Memorial for the Unborn in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a former abortion facility, the walls of which are covered with plaques from moms and dads and other family members mourning the children they lost to abortion. And there is a plaque there from Norma and from Sandra.
Right.
That they put there weeping, saying that they were the women behind these decisions and that they committed their lives. They did it at that moment and at countless other moments to seeing the end of those decisions, the reversal of those decisions. In fact, Norma actually took legal action. And this is where our friend Alan Parker can speak about this. Legal action to the court. To the court to reverse Roe v. Wade. Using legal mechanisms that that were available to them. But that beautiful a memorial that I hope people have a chance to go to at some point in Chattanooga. That tells a story in those, on those stones, on those plaques,
Yeah.
of deep regret. So many tears shed in that room, including by Roe and Doe themselves, and it right there in those words on that plaque shows so beautifully the spirit with which they lived their lives.
That's right.
And made this effort. So it's no surprise, is it? It's no surprise that this would,
I guess sooner or later.
people always did try to do it. They always tried to do this, and they're going to try to do it again. Let's rewrite history. Let's twist the story. Let's Bernard Nathanson, Carol Everett, Abby Johnson, in fact, hundreds of other people.
Hundreds and hundreds have come out of the abortion industry.
Out of the abortion industry.
No longer work there.
And
Right.
it's a particular form of arrogance to stand in judgment over somebody and try to make it seem like that actual conversion wasn't real. That is one of the most deep, offensive forms of arrogance that a person can have.
That's right.
You didn't really convert. Nothing erases history. Not even the person who lived it. Suppose I said to you now, hey, you know what? I really don't believe in the things of the priesthood or things of the Catholic faith. That still doesn't erase the reality of what I did now I've been a priest over 30 years. Doesn't erase the conviction, the truth, the work, the sacrifice. It doesn't. Because the reality, as we've said from the beginning here today, is in the journey itself. And we were privileged to make that journey.
That's
and
right.
We're going to enable you, friends, to make it with us as we continue to talk about this in the days ahead. So don't be deceived by this kind of nonsense, and let's continue getting the word out.
That's right.
Any final word for our viewers?
Well, no, just that I always considered Norma like a sister. She always considered me like a sister, and I'm offended that people are maligning the name of my sister.
Yeah.
My sister in Christ.
Right. Well, may the Lord bless you, friends. May He strengthen you and make you effective witnesses to the unborn. And may Almighty God bless you all, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, friends, for joining us. We'll talk to you again soon.